Welcome to the You Decide podcast. I'm Dr. Tiffany. We're going to bring you stories of ordinary people who have chosen to live an extraordinary life, outside of their comfort zones and into confidence, possibility, and certainty. You are just one decision away from living your most aligned life, because let's get real, that's what we all want. Hey guys. Oh, I'm so excited. We have Jodee Bocks. Hi, Jodee.
Hi, Tiff.
So we're going to have a conversation about people, about energy, about communication, about how we show up in the world. And the whole goal of this is to be real and raw enough so that we can see how everyone else feels and how they can adapt in this crazy world of energy change and what we consider evolution, right? This is a time of massive change. But I'm going to give a little bit of background on Jodee. I met Jodee through a mutual friend, Rika. Wild Rika. Hopefully you're listening.
We love Rika.
Oh. Yeah, so it was 15 years ago, right about now. I think the first women network, WBE.
Oh my gosh, yeah, right.
That downtown place was the first place she brought me. And I remember I had a green, long jacket on. What?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Sometimes you can just go back to where you were. And when you say 15 years, I'm like, oh, no, it was 5.
No.
15. Oh my God. Wow.
So that's where I met Carolyn Kramer.
Yeah.
We started Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
At that gym place, Total Balance, I think, maybe.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
That fall. I'm pretty sure it was 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah, you're right on.
When I was new in practice. So anyway, what I have always the essence of you has always been a space holder and a question asker, which freaking annoys me.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know. I do that to people. I know. And Rika would say the same thing. It freaking annoys her too. Or it used to.
Oh my God, can I just talk without you wondering about...
I know, totally.
But there's not many people that can take their subjectivity out of the equation and actually just observe. That is what you have a gift in. You have a gift in observation, body language, understanding when people need to be able to trust you and talk. And instead of being told what to do, because we're a bunch of assholes.
Assholes. Yes, that's good. Yes.
We still are, right?
Yeah.
So, and nobody wants to really be, talked at or shoved into a premise or a philosophy. So, that's the beauty of you. You can create a beautiful space because you see that you have a person in front of you that has potential to the nth degree that at least you believe they have. And you probably don't realize how much of a ripple effect it actually has on people because they don't know.
Yeah. Thank you.
They likely don't know, but anybody who knows you knows of multiple conversations, I would imagine, that's well, Jodee Bocks made me think. And this is what I learned.
Can I just jump off that for a second?
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, when you say that, back in the day, because I've had a career journey, and I remember one career I had, pretty long career. I was at a job for 10 years, and then I left that job to go to another job that was pretty parallel, and we had vendors in common from my one job to the other job. And so I went to the second job, and one of the vendors said to me, "Oh, one of your coworkers at the previous place told me he was really glad you'd left." And I said, "Well, thanks for sharing that. Why do you say that?" He goes, because this guy said, "Man, I'm glad Jodee's not here. She made me think too much." And I think back to that. That was a long time ago. And at the time I was offended by that. And now yay, that's awesome.
No, because and I can relate to this. I'm deep and fast, right? I'm really not interested in a superficial conversation. I don't really love hey, how's the weather outside? How are you feeling today? Oh my gosh, how was your weekend? What? I mean, I say it many times to appease somebody being heard, right?
Yeah.
But there is no depth in that. And you are deep. So when somebody says something, you're like, oh, well, wait a minute.
Mhm.
You question their words,
Mhm.
right?
I do. I know. I mean, see, all these combinations of things that make me me are really irritating to some people. The English major in me, people are like, can you just let me mess it up? Can you just let me? Why do you have to correct everything I say and write? I know.
Ah,
I
but
know.
it makes people think. And
Mhm.
so people, the majority of people want to stay in comfort zones and they want to stay on autopilot.
Mhm.
They absolutely want to because it is non-thinkable.
Mhm.
There's not conflict. There's not confrontation. There's nothing that makes them right or wrong, good or bad, black or white, right? The people want to stay gray. That's just what it is, right? So how can we find the
Mhm.
people that want to deep, dark, and raw?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. Yeah, right.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you just like, have you always been one that is in a conversation that you have observed? Like, can you go back to,
Mhm.
this is very rare.
I don't know that it's rare because it's just what yeah, but so the answer to the question is yes, I guess. When I look back, I remember distinctly having thoughts. I think it's called metacognition, having thoughts
Oh my
about
God, what,
thoughts. Well,
what
thinking about
word did
thinking.
you just say?
I know, but I'm saying there's a term for it. I'm not making it up, right? So it's thinking about thinking. I
Oh,
remember, I'm going to say 5 years old. Well, I learned to read when I was 3, which is a bad thing for parents. Think about that. I was
right.
just insatiably curious from the time I can remember. And I was reading 5th grade books when I got to 1st grade. So when I was 3, can you imagine how that would open up a little kid's mind, right? And there's
Right.
all kinds of questions. And I remember, I don't remember exactly the age, between 3 and 5, learning about like China and the kids in China and thinking there are kids in China who are like kids in America. And I remember when they'd show you a picture of the globe and you'd be on the top in America and they'd be on the bottom in China. And I'd keep thinking, why are they not falling off? Because, I mean, just things like that.
Right.
If you could drill all the way through the earth, would you hit China? You know, and I mean, I was thinking about thinking all the time.
Um,
And in Sunday school, it made people crazy because I asked questions about big things when I was a little kid. And
absolutely.
the Sunday school teachers would be like, I got nothing. I don't even know what to say to this. And then, so then the default would be, well, if you have to ask that question, then you must not have faith. And I'm like,
Oh,
why would
oh,
God
right.
do this to me? Why would God make me ask this question? I learned about pygmies in Africa and how the missionaries would go to teach the pygmies about Jesus. And I'd go, well, the pygmies didn't get to know about Jesus. How come we're right and they're wrong? And they would say, well, then it's your job to teach the pygmies about Jesus. And I'm like, oh my God, now I have to deal with the pygmies? This is a lot for a 5-year-old. Come on, people, you know? So yeah,
Wow.
I do remember having these kinds of thoughts when I was a little kid.
Okay, so I want to go here because I think lots of people think about thinking
Mm-hmm.
and they don't speak, or they're just constantly like their curiosity is killed, or they've been like you led to believe that a question is not, you're not supposed to ask questions because that person might now then blame you for something like, well, then you don't believe, right? Might make you something that you're not. Can you, oh, this is cool. Can you talk about times in your life that thinking about thinking interrupted, like, I don't mean to say failure, but like you can look back and be like, whoa, how, when did that feeling stop you from being real and raw?
Mm. Yeah, lots. So I've done a lot of work on myself. So I've written a lot. I have pinpointed a lot of those episodes in my life. So the fact that you're asking me that really broad and deep question and I have an answer for it, people don't get freaked out about that because I've done the work, right?
Right.
And I'm going to segue for just a second and come back to that. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who said to me, Jodee, I think the challenge you're going to have is that you appear really polished. And if you want people to be real and raw and you get on and do these Facebook lives and you do your video and you write your blogs, it could be intimidating to people. And I appreciate that feedback. However, this is what it means to be real and raw when you're Jodee Bock.
Uh-huh.
right? So the work I've done, really deep work for the past 17 years, since 2003,
Mm-hmm.
has given me access to some of these stories. So it's not like I can just pull it out of the air and go, oh yeah, I've thought about it. I've thought
Right.
about thinking for a long time. And I've realized that through a lot of choices that I made, not knowing I was making them at the time, as a kid, you just do what you do. You don't think about the choices you're making necessarily, but in looking back, you can go, oh, so when that happened and I made that choice, it put me on that path, right?
Yeah.
So when I told you I learned to read early, and what would I say? I'm smart. I was smart. I was a smart kid. I was a precocious 3-year-old.
Uh-huh.
And when I got to first grade, I remember distinctly the day the teacher brought out the Dick and Jane books, thinking to myself, today they get to learn to read. And I remember thinking, if this does for them, my classmates, what it did for me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, just imagine what's going to happen for these kids, right? I'm 6 years old thinking this.
Right. Interesting.
So your question was, did it ever allow me to avoid a failure? Or could you say it again?
How how did thinking about thinking shut you down from being real and raw?
Shut me down from being real and raw. Okay. So because you're 6 years old and you have all of this awareness and this knowledge, what happened to me, in one time I can remember, my mom was a 5th grade teacher. My first grade teacher and my mom were talking outside my first grade classroom. I overheard them. And my first grade teacher said to my mom, I think we should send Jodee to 2nd grade because she already knows how to read. She knows everything that we're teaching. And my mom said no. And what I heard was, Jody's not good enough. Jody's not smart enough. Jodee doesn't belong, blah, 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 whatever the story was. And in that moment, I decided for myself that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, whatever the story was I made up. And then any success I could have had, I tried to bury so that I could belong, right? If I don't belong with my first grade classroom, then what else do I not belong in? And so that story of I don't belong was a story I kept with me forever. I'm not kidding. Tell an adult, till not that long ago. And
I was going to say it probably still comes into play, right?
well, because it's subconscious, right? At that moment, it gets you by and it helps you get through a situation. Oh, I don't belong. Oh, okay. So when I don't belong, then I need to do X. And then whatever I decided to do in X to fit into, I was taller than everybody else. I was a big kid anyway. So big and smart. I got bullied so badly. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. I didn't have friends because I didn't fit. I didn't belong. And so then you have to do everything you can to try to belong, and everything gets stuffed into this little box that starts bulging and trying so hard to expand, and the box would pop open at the most inopportune times. I remember throwing a book at a friend's head in 7th grade because he got a better grade on a test than I did. So these things would just happen, and I'd be like, what did that's not perfect. Jodee, if you want to belong, you got to be perfect. And that's not perfect. And what happens when you are not perfect? I got kicked out of algebra class once because I got the wrong answer, and I ripped up the paper and just crumpled it up and threw it on the floor. And my algebra teacher said, Miss Bock, take a walk. And I went, oh my Lord, I just got kicked out of class. What do you do when you get kicked out? What do people do? What do these deviants do when they get kicked out of school? I'm one of them. What happens? I had no idea what to do. I walked around the school. I went to the bathroom. Where do I go when I get kicked? But do people what? Do you go smoke out in the parking lot now? What happens to me now? Who am I becoming? You laugh, but this is what went through my head, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What happened to me in that moment was I went to that frickin' study carrel right outside the algebra room. And I walked around and I did this and I went to the bathroom and I thought about it. And I said, I'm going to figure this stupid thing out if it kills me. I'm going to figure this thing. I hated math and algebra, but I'm going to figure this out. My basketball coach happened to walk by, saw me now after I'd had my little whatever. And I'm writing this problem out. And he goes, what are you doing out here? Aren't you supposed to be in class? And I went, I got kicked out of class. And I just lost it. And I'm like, I got kicked out of class. Oh my God. And he's like, okay, take a chill pill. Everything's fine. Those are the ways it would come out. trying to be perfect. I remember basketball was really important to me growing up because I figured out there was something I could be good at. And I remember in the summer before my senior year, I was with a friend playing tennis, and we played basketball in the fall back then, not in the winter. So
me too.
Practice. And so we had practice in the summer, and it was hot and sweaty. And I was out playing tennis right before the season started. Like it was going to start the next day maybe. And I was playing tennis, and some friends drove up and they said, are you hot? Yeah, I'm hot. Oh, we got a Mountain Dew here. And they gave me Mountain Dew, and it had sloe gin in it. So I took this big swig and I'm like, this isn't Mountain. Oh my God, what is this? What did you just give me? Oh my God, I just drank. Okay, I'm out. So I went to my coach and I said, I drank. If you do what you got to do. Here's, I was such a rule follower and and he's like, Jodee, would you just mellow out? He always did that to me. Would you just mellow out? Okay, tell me what happened. And so I told him the story, and he's like, okay, you're not going to get busted because you did that, but thinking about all those things, thinking about thinking and how it kept me limited, I think. What if I'd messed up sooner? What if I'd figured things out sooner? I don't know.
So, because what happens, when the root of limiting beliefs is not being good enough, right? I mean, that is really typically the foundational premise of why we follow the rules, why we're perfectionists, why we're afraid of success, why we're afraid of failure, why we are afraid of not belonging. Everything is just like that root of not feeling good enough or not being you enough or whatever that is. So did you find, I think of a lot of people think what they want to say, but they don't ever say it, right? And then they leave in the they have that feeling of guilt or not speaking their truth. And obviously working with the body and the majority of women, hello, not speaking your truth will show up as thyroid issues, neck stuff, immune system, respiratory things, heart chakra, high blood pressure, anxiety. I mean, all these things, right? We don't connect to that. But when we live a life of not speaking ever because we are following the rules and we need to be seen as just so, what was that point that you said, F it, screw it. I am going to speak. And yes, this is evolution, right?
Right.
That didn't happen 30 years ago and all of a sudden you're clean and clear. You just wipe your hands and poof. But the opposite of that is finding validation in needing to belong, right? So you act a certain way and they do a certain thing that has been the pattern the whole time. And you're like, see, when I do this, they do that. And now I don't belong. So that's not my crew.
Right.
So do you remember when you just said, F it? I need to, this is going to kill me by not being me.
The first time I can remember that was when I did the Landmark Forum in 2003.
Okay.
So the reason I did the Landmark Forum was not to fix me, because I had nothing wrong. I mean, I was fine. I learned a lot of distinctions in language and leadership and communication from the Landmark Forum. I did the whole curriculum. It took a year to do the whole curriculum. And that allowed me access to connecting the dots looking backward. So that was where I first had the opportunity to go, oh, so when I had these 4 bosses in a row that were all jerks, I was the common denominator. Oh, I was upset. I didn't know I was blaming and upset at the time.
Yeah.
I was frustrated but it was all my fault, right? Everything I put back on me until I got some access to some new ways of thinking. And that was through the Landmark Forum in 2003. So that's why I say 17 years of really heavy duty work I've done on myself. I would give the credit for my awareness and my transformational opportunities, which have continued to evolve. I'm certainly not there, to that experience in 2003.
And we're never there, right?
Oh, but I can go progressively more there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But when we decide we're done, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I believe.
I do too. And I think one thing I've learned recently as I'm evaluating who I am in the world, and I'm doing more work on mindset and Carol Dweck's work on growth versus fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And I
That's an
listened.
awesome book, by the way.
Yeah. Well, so then I listened to a podcast. It's actually an Audible book that's only available on Audible. It's not an actual book, but it's Mel Robbins coaching people. Have you heard those?
Yeah. Yep.
So she does live coaching and it's through Audible. And she was talking about this woman she was working with who is a perfectionist, and I identified in a lot of myself in her story. And she was saying that this perfectionist person who wanted to be good at stuff had a fixed mindset. And I went, no, she does not. And I'm listening to her coach her all the way through there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've had a fixed mindset. I always prided myself on being open and growth. But when I got that distinction from Mel Robbins, last summer, I mean, this is new.
Yeah.
She said, the reason this woman had a closed and fixed mindset is because she never tried anything she knew she couldn't be good at. And that was so totally my story. I didn't try things if I knew I couldn't be good at them, because what would happen if I had to realize that I was a failure or that I was not a perfectionist? And so I really didn't try things. I remember trying to play the piano. I took 12 years of piano lessons, and I just didn't have the piano gene in me. And I had friends who were accompanists for our music programs, and I tried everything I could to play the piano the way they could, and I just didn't have it. And so then I quit, or I didn't continue trying, because I wanted to find things that would allow me to be in flow so I could get there faster. And it ended up being basketball, and so basketball was a place I could see results from my hard work.
Right.
And I remember even just last summer going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have had a fixed mindset.
Right. Isn't that so
Ah,
good? See that? Yeah, that's, I'm going to put that book in the show notes too. Because I think that, fixed versus growth. So you never try anything new. Think of it, the people that don't try anything new, or like you and I, high school, college basketball. I mean, you were an All-American at NDSU. That's a little bit different than
Concordia.
Concordia. Yeah. Sorry. I get your.
That's okay. I worked at NDSU and I still work at NDSU, so it's confusing for people. And this is a funny story about that. So there's a gal that played basketball at NDSU who's really, really good. Short, little, long, blonde hair. Her name is Jodee Bocks. And people would get that mixed up. She's short, guard, quick, cute. And then there's me, big, tall, dark hair. And they're like, you played basketball at NDSU? No, that wasn't me.
That's funny. But I found myself, and I mean, even my hubby and I, he played college sports also. You find yourself leaning into what you innately like or that you are good at. And the more, I mean, you get done with a college sport and you hate running now because they made you run on punishment, and you make all these excuses, right? For like, oh, my coach made me do this and this and this, so I'm never going to do that again. And you never did try anything then. I mean, I even think that was where our time went, besides having social hour. It was school, if I chose to go to school, and basketball, right? So you didn't try anything. And all of a sudden you get into this adult world, and now you're working or you're doing your master's somewhere. And I mean, if you don't train your mindset to continue to do things that are uncomfortable, you are going to be fixed for a really long time.
Right. That's so true. So true.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we talked about before we started this was that you always assume positive intent in people, right? That you're in love with potential.
I will say that I've come to that through this awareness piece. I think looking back, I probably didn't always assume positive intent, right?
Correct. Yes.
So through my journey, I pride myself on making that a really in the forefront of what I'm looking at. Yes. So yes, I'm always in love with potential.
Talk about this. Especially in the world of what is right now, and who knows where that's going. It can be really difficult to see potential. This is what most people are probably thinking. Like, how do you see the good in that person? Do you see what they're doing? Or how can you Yes. Let's just talk on that first before I ask 3 questions.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit more about the distinction there. And again, this is going to be one of those times where you're going to go, I wish I wouldn't have asked this because Jody's going to get really technical on this.
No, not true.
So potential to me is out there somewhere in the future. And if I'm always in love with potential, reality might come knocking at the door and I might not see it. So potential might never happen. And if I'm in love with potential for myself and others, I may not see what is really being presented to me. So I look at the distinction between potential and capacity as really important, because capacity is right now, right here today. What is the reality of the capacity? And I'll give you a distinction with that. If you have I guess we're not on video, so they can't see this, but I have this little container right here of hand sanitizer, and it's 3 fluid ounces. And if that is full, it's 100% full. I also have this water glass that's probably 16 ounces. Mm-hmm. Again, if it's full, it's full. That's the capacity. This 16 ounce glass is not any better than this 3 ounce hand sanitizer. There's no distinction in this. Capacity is capacity. But if I'm looking at, potential, this little hand sanitizer, 3 ounces, if it really tried, it could be 20 ounces. That's not the same thing. And so I have started being aware of the assuming positive intent, no matter what the potential is. The capacity today, if I can see people as 100% full, let's say, or working to build their capacity, that's way different than expecting that they will rise to the occasion or be something I think they should be at some point in the future. So thinking about people and now and the situations we find ourselves in and how we're getting so polarized and people are upset and they're stressed and they're at this point, it's not about me saying anybody needs to be different than they are. Not at all. I see it. I see Wayne Dyer, one of my mentors. He said, when you squeeze an orange juice comes out. Not apple juice, not tomato juice. Mm-hmm. When we are squeezed, what comes out of us is what's inside of us.
Yeah.
And I just noticed the people who are getting really bent out of shape about X, Y, Z, whatever it might be, because there's so much to get bent out of shape about right now. That's what's inside of them. Mm-hmm. And what happens if it doesn't come out? Oh my gosh, that's what's been happening in our world up to now. We're like, I said this earlier to somebody, it's kind of gross, but I've been watching Dr. Pimple Popper.
Oh my God, isn't that something?
What happens if they get these like big, huge things on them? They're like growths on their shoulder that looks like another head, and if you don't take that thing out, that's going to keep growing, right? We got to get out what's inside of our universe and our people and our humanity right now. Yeah. And if we don't excise that, if we don't, get it out, that's what's happening. I see in the universe right now. It's maybe that's a little bit strong because I don't know about the universe, but the planet I
say totally the universe,
right? So right. it's like shaking things up so we can figure out what we want to leave behind and what we want to take with us. Right. And if we as human beings aren't doing that, then it's going to pop up at the most inopportune time. Like the box I told you I was trying to stuff with all the stuff I was trying to avoid. It pops up every now and then and just slaps you. Well,
so interesting because that's my work, right? Is the stress, let's just say stress in this example, but stress will create whatever's going on to be more of whatever's going on, no matter what. And so now we're squeezed. The relationship, so many people will say, well, yeah, our relationship has really went down in the dumps in the last 3 months because of all this. No, that was happening. That was inside of you. Now you're squeezed and that's what's coming out. Mm-hmm. Financial, relationship with kids, or my health. Oh my gosh, I'm just a train wreck the last 3 months. Yeah, it was happening before. That was what was happening. Now all of a sudden we have this stress and it just becomes more of what is. Sometimes that's hard for people to understand, but how can we bring more light between what you do, what all of us that are light seekers do? How can we bring more light to the darkness of a person, of a situation, so that we can heal and we're better, right?
Yeah.
instead of continuing to hide in that box. And I mean, there's no way that there's the physical being, the emotional, the spiritual, that everything then is hiding,
Right.
scared of life.
Mm-hmm.
How do we move forward? What if you were having this conversation with somebody, because you're going to ask questions?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I'm learning about that question asking thing, it doesn't serve me or anybody else well to coach, move someone in a direction if they're not open to that.
Yeah.
So asking a question, you said earlier when I ask questions and you're like, can't I just say what I want? Just quit asking me questions. It's sort of, and I'm going to own this. I haven't owned this recently, but I'm going to own my intuition, right? I have a feeling about whether or not it's okay to ask a question that's going to move somebody in a direction or not.
Can I just stop and add one thing to you?
For sure.
Mm-hmm. You build rapport really fast. So I don't want you to underestimate. Yes, you're intuitive, but when we build rapport, we can say anything. And you can build rapport really fast. So some people, you could build rapport in a minute. Well, in that minute, yes, you might be intuitively guided to ask the question, but I think, some of the foundation of how you communicate is because you built it. They trust you.
Yeah.
And so now intuitively you can say,
sure,
but you can intuitively say that. And if you didn't have rapport, it would not be as well received.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing that. Yeah. I thank you. I'm thinking about a specific conversation I had with someone not that long ago where he was, to my eyes, not completely happy. There was something up, but I didn't know. And I just asked him, I said, tell me about things. How are things going? We were having coffee. It was no big deal. We were just two friends having coffee. We weren't even having a business conversation or anything. And he's a business owner and his business is really doing well. And I want to know more about his business because I'm a connector and I want to know how I can, help people with their businesses and grow and refer people. And he said, oh, things are great. This is good. This is happening. My business is growing. We've got everything we need. My family's good. My kids are good. My wife is good. And it's really good, implying we have a lot of money and things are great. And I don't know what caused me to do this, but I said to him, I kind of leaned in across the table and I said, so are you happy? And he got teary. And I said, okay, I didn't know that was going to happen. And I want you to know that if you're not comfortable going here, and he goes, okay, keep going. And we had a really interesting conversation at the table. Now, I'm a coach, so that's what I do, right? And what I do for a living is coach people who want to be coached, who come to me and say, I want to give you money so that you can coach me. That wasn't where he was. And that wasn't really fair of me to dig in if he didn't want to do that.
Right.
But what I found really fascinating about that conversation, when we were walking out to the parking lot, I said, I really apologize if I touched on anything. And I said, I won't do that again. And he goes, keep asking.
Yeah.
And I said, all right. So, that's a business conversation now that could be like, okay, so are you thinking you want to hire me yet? So the conversation will be a little bit different because then it will be invited. And invited as a professional is different than being a friend who says to someone, what the hell are you doing, Tiffany? It's a different kind of questioning, I think.
But don't you think that's like the essence of connection and depth? You're not superficial. You would, if you didn't ask questions, you would be, hey, how's it going?
Right. Yeah.
No, but anyone that's in a conversation with you is also invited. So how do we make conversations more meaningful?
Well, I think
business or not, right?
Well, the question for us then depends on who's listening to this, and your audience, I'm guessing, is the people that want to go deep. Right. So if you don't want to go deep, don't ask that first question that you just asked.
Yeah. Right.
Because if you don't want to go deep and you want to stay on the surface, then you're going to ask the questions you just asked. How's the weather? What the question we always ask, how are you? And the answer we always give, fine. So how are you? Fine. There's no exchange of information at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a friend who says fine is feelings inside not expressed.
Yeah, for sure.
And so if we don't want to know, don't ask the question. And if you do want to know, then even that first question, how are you, could be asked differently.
Uh-huh.
When you see somebody and when we can get back to coffee shops and when we can get back to being with people, which we can, we're getting there. But if you walk past somebody, instead of saying, hey, how you doing? Say something like, hey, what's good today?
Yeah.
Or, something that'll cause them to go, well, I can't just say fine because she didn't ask that question.
Right.
Oh gosh, wait, what? It's a
Right.
pattern interrupt. And so start with something really simple, but unexpected.
Yeah. And I think like compliments are also one thing, right? Like, especially
Sincere ones.
Oh yeah, right. But I would only expect sincere between you.
Well, I have a former boss who would say every day, I really like that top, Jodee. It's really pretty. And I'm like, shut up. You don't care what I have on. You've been told that you're supposed to ask that question. I can tell. But he was an old school guy. I mean, he was like older generation, and he was told, this is how you talk to women in the office. And I'm like,
make them feel acknowledged, make them feel appreciated. Oh, honey.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so can you just talk about all the stuff that you're doing? Coaching, you've written a few books, and we'll have all this for anyone to grab also. You're kind of reinventing, re-innovating your website and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, so I don't know what got into me. I don't know what I was thinking 5 weeks ago when I hired a marketing coach, but I decided now is the time. I mean, it's what else are you going to do in COVID, right? When you got to figure out what you're going to be when you grow up. I've been getting by since I started my business in 2005, and I've kind of known that there's more I could do, but it's one of those, like, you don't want to look under the hood of the car. The car's working. It's all good. Right. And then there comes a point at which it just feels like there's more. So I hired this marketing coach. Oh my gosh, just amazing. Rocked my world in the last 5 weeks and had me ask questions that I was avoiding of myself. Like, what is really who I want to work with? And I've been in this space of, well, I'm supposed to say it's corporate people who do X, Y, and Z and who blah, 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 blah. And then when you do that, what he'll say is you please the marketing or the SEO gods and Dr. Google, and then they can find you and then blah, 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 blah. And then you make your 800 calls and you do this is the way you do work, people, right? That just never resonated with me. And he's the first person that's allowed me to be genuine and authentic in the way I'm doing this. So my old business, I never liked my website. I just never liked my website, but it was what I was supposed to do because you're supposed to use this color and you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to have this. And I just never felt good about my website. And so that's shifting. I'm not sure exactly to what yet, but Chris, my coach, is saying, you know what, Jodee, I even think your company name is from your old self. And my company name was Box Office, which I loved. And it was awesome and great. And he said, but I think that's the old you. Yeah. So we're going to brand jodeebock.com and we're going to figure that out as we go. And part of the project that I was part of in this class was sending people to authentic me. I didn't have any place to send them. I didn't know what I was marketing. I didn't know what I was sending them to because I'm in the middle of it. So I decided I'm just going to create a Facebook group, I guess. I don't know. And he said, well, what should we call it? And I said, well, I've got this course I wrote a couple of years ago called Real Impact. And REAL is an acronym, radical, energized, authentic, and learning based. And he said, oh, I love that. It's real, Jodee. Get real. Jodee, this is it. And he was like, real. It's got to be real. Everything you do has got to be real. And I'm like, okay. So I created this Facebook group, which I don't know much about. And the Facebook group is called Get Real. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. And on May 14th, I started it at like 10 o'clock in the morning and just put it out there and started inviting a few people and said, hey, check this out. I don't really know exactly what it's going to be yet. And today, I don't know what day it is. It's the 27th of May, which is not quite 2 weeks later. We're over 700 members. Awesome. And so there's something about getting real that I can invite when I'm doing it. I can't fake being real. I've been faking being real for a long time and not knowing it. And when I can really, really be real, people must sense that. And we're calling it a safe space where people can come to explore. And we're having conversations about things that matter. We had a Facebook Live last night with a friend of mine and me, and we just talked. And we had several people, I think we got 60 comments on it. And we had people watch the conversation and just be part of it and ask questions. And I think people want to explore in the messiness without feeling judged.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is a place where they can explore in the messiness without being judged.
I love that.
So my coaching will, although it does have that reflection, it always has, my coaching has, it will be more intentional, and I will be more intentional about marketing it. Because right now everything's word of mouth. I've never marketed. I've never advertised for anything. I've gotten super amazing, great clients by word of mouth. And I'd love to expand that. I'd love to. Oh, it's so much fun. I have the best clients ever. And it's just so much fun.
So is Jodee Bocks still live? Like if people want to-
JodeeBock.com. Box office is still live too, but it's really not pinned. It's weedy. The weeds have grown up, right? But JodeeBock.com is current. So it's my name. When I talk about it, I talk about the red circle on it, but I changed my color scheme. So the red circle is now lime green. So if you're looking for the red circle and you hear anything, it's now a lime green circle because my color scheme has changed.
Oh, that's cool. I noticed that actually in your bio picture. We got lime green now. I wasn't expecting it. You're right.
Yep. So that picture that I sent you, I learned Photoshop. I learned a little Photoshop, and I've learned Audacity. I've been learning stuff in this time, right? So on one picture, I wear a lime green shirt. It's the same shirt. And in one picture, I wear a bright orange shirt. And in another one, it's purple because those are the colors. And so I can change the color of my shirt. So that's a little bit not being real. It's a little bit being Photoshoppy, but it just fits the scheme better because the color of the actual shirt was like a forest green. And I liked the picture, but the shirt just didn't cut it. So there's my admission about not being real in my color of the shirt I had on.
Yeah, that's different than what we talked about, being photoshopped in a perfectionistic way, right?
Right.
Think of how many people just need it. I'm going to take these professional pictures and take away everything that makes me. Right. And now you look plastic and perfect.
My 11s. Well, this is my 11s. I didn't even know what they were called, but they're 11s.
Oh, the crow's feet. Yeah. Right? Is that what that is?
When you have two of them right between your eyebrows, I guess they call them 11s.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? So I should probably Botox those, don't you suppose? So I don't look like I'm frowning all the time.
Or not.
I do that because I'm contemplating things, and I'm like,
Yeah, you're thinking about thinking.
And then that's it. That's my 11s for thinking about thinking.
When I see you next, I'm going to be like 11s.
I know. I earned them though. And if I didn't, I'd be like this all the time.
Starstruck.
They go away when I do that. You can't see this if you're just listening.
I was going to say, if you're listening, we should probably we could put this a little snippet of finding your 11s. With Jodee Bocks.
Here they are. Here they are.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so if people want to get better at asking questions, what is that little bookie?
Yes. So I have a book that was created over a weekend because I needed to get this out of me. And it's called Say What? 100+ Questions to Ignite Conversation and Spark Dialogue. Little tiny little book, but so much, there's good stuff in here.
Yeah.
So do you have, I wonder if you have a question in here.
I think I do.
I think you do. I think you do. Because what I did, I went to Facebook and I said, what is the best question somebody asked you? And I just put it on my Facebook page. And in an hour, I had so many people contributing to this. I'm going to look and see if you're here. And then what I did is I just copied and pasted all of those into the book. And so now we have people who are sharing their favorite questions. And in the electronic version of this, they are actual links to those people's Facebook pages.
Oh, that's cool.
I never knew that happened. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking to see, Tiff, if you have a question in here.
That's a real book and an ebook, right?
Yeah, real book and ebook. Yeah. And it's been really helpful for me because it's broken into categories. And the categories are about learning, about strategy, about change, about addressing difficult situations, about redirecting others' behavior, about me, questions about myself, and then a section called non-questions, which are conversation starters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, here, I'm just opening about change. So if I were asking somebody a question, I'd say something like, so how does it feel to you? What resonates with you? What do you want? Are you interested or committed? That's a good question. Are you interested or
Yeah.
committed? If you're interested, you'll do what it takes when it's easy. If you're committed, you'll do what it takes even when the emotion you set it in wears off.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging, I'm just asking.
Right.
No, I'm interested. I'm interested in losing 20 pounds. Give me the chips. But if I'm committed, I'll do something else, right?
Right.
How does that serve you? I ask that question a lot to people. So how does what you're doing serve you or the world? And they'll say, well, it does blah, 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 blah. And I'll go, okay, great. Awesome. Or they'll say, huh, damn. Yeah, it doesn't. So it's
Right.
just a question, right? What are you ready to change? What are you not ready to change yet? What would need to change in your thinking to take that action? Who might benefit from this?
Yeah,
So
that's good. No, that is good. I'll include the real life book and the ebook and the
okay.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one last question. If you could go back to your, younger self, unwiser self, this is a question that a lot of people ask. And I'm the most interested in looking at the people who are intentional about evolving. What advice would you give her?
What age? Do you have an idea of what age it would be?
What age would be the most impressionable?
For me, it would have been 6.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's talk to her.
So at 6, if I could look at a 6-year-old and a 6-year-old me, 6-year-old,
Yep.
I think you are who you are right now, who you're being right now, who you are frustrated about. It's all perfect. So who you are being, no matter what, you don't have to change. You can wear that shirt you want to wear. You can ask those questions. And when I say, give you that permission to do it, just know that there will be consequences to that. So I want to make you aware that you can do whatever you want. You can do anything. And whatever you choose to do, there will be consequences. And so what I mean, and I would have to explain probably what that is. Like, here's an example. If I were 6 and I'd say, I don't want to wear my coat and it's 10 degrees outside. Okay. All right. You don't have to wear your coat. Here's what's going to happen. You might get really cold. You might, feel like at some point this is not the right decision. I'm just going to tell you that when you make that decision to not wear your coat, there will be other things that will happen because of that. Maybe you'll get frostbite. Maybe you'll get, lots of things can happen, but you choose. And then given the choice, you can change your mind. Given the choice, I chose not to wear a coat. And for 10 minutes, I'm outside in 10-degree weather. And then I'm going to come back inside and say, you know what? I'm going to make another choice. Because in the consequence of that, but not so that older me would say, see, told you so. I knew better, little Jodee. I knew better what you should do. Not that way. Only love, only like, I'm going to help you figure this out and I'm going to hold the space for you to figure it out. And I'm going to always tell you, great choice.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to always tell you, great choice. Hey, I could learn something from that. Because innately we see, good or bad a lot of times when we're not intentional, right? This led to this. This was your fault.
Yeah. Well, hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it? We know so much looking back. I think maybe right now, this is our opportunity in this weird space we find ourselves. What if we got intentional about making our foresight 20/20? Not just our hindsight.
Right.
And a way that I'm learning this is my process. I had this opportunity to speak at an event on March 1st, 2020. So think about what was happening 2 weeks later.
Yes.
I was in San Diego and I got a chance to be on a stage for a 4-minute open mic speech. And in 4 minutes, I gave a speech that is guiding me right now.
Right.
And it was so profound because it just came to me. And what occurred to me was, I have been making decisions in my life based on somebody else's programming of me. Nobody's fault. It's just that that's what I've been doing.
Yes.
And now I want to be in a space of discernment, discernment before decision. And what I'm calling discernment is that space where I can take my intellect, my knowledge, my information that I've got in my head, which is the way I always used to make decisions only. Do I have enough? Do I have enough information? Do I have enough statistics? That's information, intellect, but also invite two other parts of me that I've forgotten and neglected over the years, which are my intuition, my heart, my connection with higher self, infinite intelligence, God, and my instinct, my gut, my fight, flight, freeze, but also the part of me that wants to belong, that wants to be connected. That's your instinct. Your instinct is the part of you that wants to be connected, not your intellect or even your intuition. Right. It's weird, right? So I've forgotten about all three of those. And right now in 2020, I want to line up the eyes, intellect, intuition, instinct. Line up the eyes for 2020 foresight in 2020, right? And so that process for me has been really helpful because it allows me to feel things that I used to throw away and say that's not important. And that's ultra, uber important. And I've not allowed that. And so lining up the eyes.
Right. Oh, I love that. And most, I mean, even just seeing the definition of that is very powerful for people because, I mean, we're typically in the brain world, the logical, the fight, flight, or freeze. And now we add in stress and we're definitely there. So our intuition is shut down and our instinct is shut down. Or it peeks through that little crack and you're like, oh, no, that doesn't feel good. Well, it does feel good, but the conflict is just too rampant in the logical brain to be able to calm that down.
So maybe the space we can allow ourselves, the space of grace. So the space and place of grace in 2020 foresight. I mean, I don't know. There's ways to work this out so that it feels better, not perfect, better. You know, I have in my bedroom, I have a picture that says better than I was yesterday. And that's all I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Not comparing to anybody else or pulling through anything. It's just better than I was yesterday. And if I can do that, then my life will be what I want it to be.
Right. Oh, this was awesome. We need to have coffee more often.
We do. Come to my sidewalk or my driveway. I just started on Monday this thing called Red Chair Driveway Dialogue. Red Chair Driveway Dialogue. Okay. You'll have to listen to my very first podcast. So I started a brand new podcast on Monday.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, brand new. First episode. And it was about this Red Chair Driveway Dialogue. And so I had another one on yesterday. Red Chair Driveway Dialogue. 3 people came and we sat on my driveway and had a conversation because we can't go to coffee shops. We can't go out. So we're we're social distancing on my driveway and bringing their own coffee. And we had a really cool conversation yesterday with people. 2 people I knew all of them, but 2 people didn't know each other. And I introduced them on my driveway.
Yeah. Well, you're a connector. That's what you do. Yeah. So you create space and you ask questions. This is exactly what Red Chair, whatever. It's hard.
Red Chair Driveway Dialogue, I think.
Red Chair DD.
RCDD. And so I want to do Red Chair. We had one last night on Zoom with my friend Beth and me. Beth is in Austin, Texas, and we had a Red Chair Dialogue on Zoom. And we opened it up and anybody could come and watch and chat if they wanted to. And we just tried it. It was like an hour long. Beth and I just talked about spirituality and wherever it went. And people were contributing to that conversation because that's what we do in the Get Real circle.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thanks for sharing your heart. Thanks for sharing your journey. Because like, as people say, you look like you're very polished, and anybody who looks polished isn't. We've just done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right?
And part of that, I think for you too, Tiff, it shows in the work we've done, right? Yeah. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yes. Right.
And the rocks look polished on the outside because it's been a lot of work to get them there, and it's never done. I hope it's never done. Right. It's just that it's a little more done than it was the day before.
Yeah. And without being polished because you're hiding or you're wearing a mask. Also, I would say that, right? Because so many people look polished, like they have their shit together, but not.
Yeah. Well, it's like painting the old barn, right? You just put on a new fresh coat of paint and then it looks good on the outside.
Yep.
But we compare our insides to other people's outsides.
Oh, for sure.
And then we think we're not going to measure up because they look so darn good and shiny and perfect. And
Yep. Which is so important to you got to find your tribe that allows that Get Real Jodee to come out, and you have to make sure you're always staying in your heart center to know when Get Real Jodee's there, or perfectionist, I need to belong Jodee is starting to peak.
But the cool part about that for this, and even what you've done here with your podcast, and that tribe or that circle or that group of people will always allow the grace for that Jodee to mess up. Yeah. Without having to be perfect, because that's what we're up to. That's what real is. Real is not polished and perfect.
Right. No, absolutely not. Yeah.
And when real looks polished, I mean, I was glad that my friend said that to me yesterday, and she said, you look kind of, and I thought, well, thank you for saying that, but I'm not going to try not to be polished, because then people won't be intimidated by me. I'm just going to say, people, this is who I am. You're either gonna, like you said earlier, you're going to like it or not. And we're not going to try to be all things for all people.
No.
There's different vibrational frequencies in the world. And that's a good thing, because the guitar strings would not sound good together if they all vibrated at the same frequency.
Absolutely.
They have to work together.
Love it.
Yay.
You're doing great things, my friend.
So are you.
Thank you. Iron sharpens iron.
Right? We got it.
Thank you so much for listening and being willing to go all in. Ditch the excuses and the comfort zones and make a decision that nothing can stop you. You can find the show notes below, and I'd love for you to share, subscribe, and rate this podcast, but only if you love it.